Now, when it comes to politics, the last few months have been chaotic, haven't they? No one can deny that. And the turmoil has given opposition parties a bit of a spring in their step, particularly in seats which were once considered very hard to win, like many of those in the East. And that's why there's growing talk about a so-called progressive alliance, with opposition parties coming together to defeat the Tories. Andrew Sinclair reports.
Hello, I'm Steph. I'm hoping to become our next MP.
In seats which were once considered long shots, the latest opinion polls have given some candidates hope. And they refuse to be deterred.
We all want stability, but they are out of ideas.
Like here in the former Liberal Democrat seat of North Norfolk.
I keep hearing the same thing. Lifelong Conservative voters telling me they'll never vote that way again.
But are they turning to you because they've had enough of the Tories, or because you could actually offer something different?
I think people are changing how they're voting because they want to see change in our politics.
But it's still a big ask. At the last election, the Tories took this seat with 58% of the vote. Which is why there are some on the left and centre-left who believe that the only way to win in a very conservative region like ours is to quietly work together, to encourage voters in a seat to vote for the candidate which has the best chance of unseating the local Conservative. We saw evidence of a so-called progressive alliance in Norwich South in the 2017 election. Green and Lib Dem supporters were encouraged to lend their vote to Labour's Clive Lewis to keep him in. And in the last year, there have been surprising Lib Dem victories in solid Tory areas like Tiverton and Honiton, while Labour have started winning again in red wall seats like Wakefield. The idea of a progressive alliance comes from a left-of-centre think tank.
There are things that we call progressive tragedies, those seats where most people vote for Labour, Liberal Democrats and Greens but get a Tory. In particular, if you look at seats like South Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, they're both seats in which the majority of people want a progressive outcome but get a Tory. Now, what if they could work together effectively so that the majority in those seats got what they wanted, which was a progressive outcome?
But is this fair on voters? Because all parties stand for something a little bit different, don't they?
There is enough common ground between them to work together. And what's really unfair is our electoral system, which discounts about 70% of the votes of the people in East Anglia.
We don't believe in electoral pacts. We want to give voters the choice.
The Lib Dem leader was keen to tell me this week that his party can win on its own. But dig a little deeper.
I think you'll see many, many more people looking at who is the contender in their particular seat.
So you're advocating unofficial electoral pacts then, are you?
No, I think people should vote Liberal Democrat.
But there seemed to have been some sort of unofficial pact in Wakefield with Labour, which meant that they win. There was some sort of unofficial pact in Tiverton and Honiton, wasn't there?
No, not at all.
The Labour vote was down 16%.
That's because Labour voters realised that the Liberal Democrat candidate was the one to beat the Conservatives. What we've seen, though, in many of the recent by-elections is Labour supporters backing the Liberal Democrat candidate to beat the Conservative MP. And there are many, many seats across the country where a Liberal Democrat vote is the powerful one.
And if the Labour vote is a powerful vote, you wouldn't mind if Lib Dem supporters voted Labour?
Well, we contest every election as we should. It's really important to give voters the choice.
And it's a similar line from Labour. The Shadow Home Secretary visiting Ipswich this week.
We're campaigning for Labour. We've got brilliant Labour candidates right across the east of England, and they're campaigning for things that matter as well.
But if you had a pact with other parties, you might find it easier to win here.
Well, we think the right thing to do is to stand up for the Labour candidates and the Labour vision.
Well, they say one thing and then tend to do another. There's clearly a deal between Keir Starmer and Ed Davey about who stands where in by-elections. Funnily enough, the leaders only go to the seats that they've agreed, they've carved up between them. Now, isn't it much better to have an honest and open conversation about that and let the electorate into that deal? Much more honest, much more open, and therefore encouraging people to vote tactically for that one time until we get a progressive government that will change the electoral system, and then everyone can vote how they want.